Hello everyone, back at it again. I just launched my kayak and we've got cloudy skies. It's pretty chilly. There's nobody else out here. And that's partly because of the weather, but it's also right before a snowstorm hits. It's early April when this was filmed, and this is springtime in New England. Got 6 inches of snow coming. I didn't think there was going to be that much snow at this time, but yeah, we ended up with about 6 inches of snow, even though it's early April. And it won't last too long. It's going to be in the 60s soon, but it just sets the fish back a little bit. Anyway, I'm out trying to catch a few fish, whatever I can, before that snowstorm hits. And the first thing I'm going to do is paddle up the pond against the wind so I can fish a little bit more comfortably. A lot of times when I'm fishing, I try to fish the windy side. I feel like that pushes bait. Well, actually it pushes plankton, and the bait feed on plankton, and they kind of follow where the wind goes, and then the fish follow the bait. But that's not the plan for today. It's kind of chilly. It's in the 40s. The wind makes it feel even colder. And I want to fish on the other side of the pond in the lee. So the wind's already started to come around from the north. It's north, northwest. When the snow hits, it's going to be a proper nor'easter. But for now, it's just coming around. So I'm just going to paddle to the other end. I'll be able to fish a little bit more comfortably. The kayak's not going to be blowing all over the place, and I can present my lures a little bit better without the wind blowing the kayak as I'm trying to, fish a jerkbait or something, keep it still. So that's the plan. All right, we made it to the other side of the pond. It's a pretty small pond. It didn't take too long. Used to be just a bunch of small summer camps on here, but every time one of those summer camps comes up for sale, somebody levels the camp and builds a giant monstrosity of a house on the pond now. And yeah, it's kind of changing the atmosphere, and those homes end up being mostly year-round homes. So I feel like the pond has a little bit more pressure on it than it used to, but it really doesn't get a ton of pressure. And I'm just here to feel something pull on the end of my line and try to catch a few fish before the snowstorm. And I already caught one. That is a little pickerel that ate a Yozuri jerkbait. I'll list it in the video description. But that Yozuri jerkbait's a great jerkbait, and so is the dual hardcore version. Basically the same baits. I would guess they come out of the same factory. But pickerel love them, bass love them. And I just started fishing and I already got a fish, so I'm kind of happy. I was hoping to catch more bass than pickerel, but you know what? On this day, I'll take just about everything and be happy. And that really didn't take too long. It was just a few casts. So on the north side where I'm fishing, it's a weed flat, really. And there's a little like gully, a drain that goes through the middle of that weed flat where it's just a little bit deeper. And so that's where I'm trying to put the jerkbait and fishing just a little bit deeper water where fish can slide into that gully, slide into that drain. And this is the northernmost end of the pond. So I wanted to see if there was any fish there first. And then I'm going to turn around and start fishing progressively deeper, but that also means I'm going to be fishing where the wind is progressively blowing harder. So it's kind of a balancing act I'm trying to do here. I only found little pickerel shallow, and I'm going to see if there's bass and maybe some bigger fish a little bit out deeper. And eventually I'm going to switch over to deep running jerkbaits. Basically what I'm trying to do is just stay above the weeds and have the fish come out of the weeds and intercept that bait and eat it. Now it's cold, the water's cold, They're not interested in really chasing baits too much. I have a kind of a series of lures that I fish in cold water, and one of them's a jerk bait. If the weeds would allow it, I'd fish a blade bait. And there's another lure I like to fish, which is a swim bait, a small swim bait on a jig head, and I'll get to that a little bit later. But basically, the key with all those presentations is to go as slow as you can without snagging weeds, and hopefully fool a few fish in the process. All right, I fished the very end of the lake. Now I'm starting to work my way back into slightly deeper water. And the game here is really just to try to keep the jerkbait above some deep weeds. There's some deep wood out there too. I have to watch out for that. Deep weeds are no problem with a jerkbait, but if I snag a jerkbait deep in wood, in like 10 feet of water, it's going to be hard to get that bait back. So I want to avoid the wood, try to keep it above the weeds, see if I can pull out another fish, and hopefully end up with some bass too. I think that's going to be another pickerel, but at least it's a fish. Yep. Another pickerel. I think these things follow me around. And they do love jerkbaits, especially expensive ones. I don't think there's a pickerel in the world that would refuse a $24 jerkbait. They just love expensive jerkbaits. I'll get him on his way, and he'll be free to go in just a minute, and we'll work on catching some bass. All right, same general area. Fishing that jerkbait slow, and that fish took it on the pause. Sometimes this time of year they're real funny and fickle and subtle, so you have to kind of pay attention. And the wind makes that a little bit harder, but sometimes you can feel them pop a bait, even on slack line with braid. Especially braid, I think, helps me feel them. And that's a little bass, so that's the right species. He's just not the right size, but maybe a step in the right direction. It's tough this time of year with the cold and the storms coming through and the wind and snow. Trying to make the most of it. But 60s will be here soon, and I feel like another 10 degrees, and it's going to open up a whole lot more ponds I can fish, and places to go and catch bigger fish too. All right, I switched over to the swim bait, and the swim bait that I like the most in cold water is the Kayak Easy Shiner. You usually fish that at a 3.5 inch size, but there's another bait made by Bass Assassin called the Elite Shiner. So very similar names, Easy Shiner, Elite Shiner. The Elite Shiner only comes in 4 inches, so it's a little bit bigger, so the fish need to be just a little bit more active, but it's a lot more durable. The Easy Shiner, if a bluegill pecks at the tail, that tail is gone, and you need a new bait. The Bass Assassin Elite Shiner, very, very similar bait, it's just not quite as soft. It works almost as well. So if the water is a little bit away from ice out, I prefer to fish the Bass Assassin version just because the bait lasts a lot longer than the Easy Shiner. I had a quick release on that last pickerel, which is fine with me, but I'll show you the retrieve. So I cast it out. I'm fishing this on spinning gear. Fairly light line, but I need a heavier leader for the pickerel, because they have sharp teeth and they'll cut through my leader if I'm not careful. And then it's a slow, steady retrieve. You just want to stay above the weeds and the fish will come up and eat it. So the idea was to see if I could get some bass on the swim bait instead of the pickerel that I was catching with the jerk bait. Well, spoiler alert, it didn't really work. I just kept catching more pickerel. But sometimes the bass will go for a slow rolled swim bait more so than the pickerel. So I fished around a little bit more, tried a few other baits. I tried a lipless. What else did I try? I tried a couple other deep running jerk baits as I started getting out into deeper water. I tried a Megabass 110+1. I had a deep diving 13 fishing jerk bait. And the only thing that I could consistently catch was more little pickerel. And I was hoping the fish would be a little bit more fired up. At least the bass would be a little bit more fired up before the snowstorm actually hit. And this time it just didn't work out. I think the water temperatures are still a little bit cool. And I probably should have been fishing in deeper water where I think the bass are still staging. But again, I didn't want to fish there because of the wind. And so this is what I was left with. But better times are going to be here soon. And I can't wait. 60 degrees is going to feel like 80 compared to the weather we've had recently. Okay, thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. I'll list all the gear in the video description, just like all my other videos. And I'll catch you on the next one. See ya!